Welcome back to the Agentic Insider. I'm your host, Philip Swan. In this show, we explore cutting-edge ideas and trends in AI and data, as well as hear from other industry thought leaders in the AI space. This podcast is brought to you by Iridius AI, committed to safe and responsible AI innovation. Let's dig in. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Agentic Insider. Joining my co-host, Alistair, and I is somebody who we call brother, somebody who we co-founded the company with, and this is our Chief Executive Officer, Mike Kropp. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm a fan, obviously. I've been watching all the great people you've been bringing in, and feel lucky to be here with you.
Awesome, Mike. We had a big week this week at Iridius. They're all big weeks, but this week in particular, because we won our first award. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, we did win our first award, and it was an interesting experience, to say the least. I went to the ISG AI Impact Summit in Boston, flew there on Monday. I landed, I think, at about landed at midnight, took an hour to go 6 miles in Boston because of the construction. And so I finally got to my room at 1 a.m. and I had to be at the event the next morning. And the Impact Summit was very, very interesting. They had a lot of customers presenting along with the leaders at the ISG Summit from ISG. And it was a hard-hitting event from the perspective that there's about 100 plus customers in the audience, enterprise customers like Moderna, many others that are looking to use AI in production and successfully. And what I learned was a lot of them have pilots that they're ready to go with, but a lot of them aren't in production yet still.
Mike, real quick, who is ISG? Why are they important?
ISG, the best way, everybody knows who Gartner is, right? And ISG essentially is another voice in the market around providing strategic insight into where technology is going, what's working for customers, what isn't, who they think the leaders are, and what innovations that they're seeing from their large segment of engagements that they're associated with. They've got, I think it's just a large ThoughtWorks company that's thinking about the future of technology and where their customers should align.
That's awesome. So they had some really interesting companies in the audience, if I recall correctly, right? You mentioned Moderna. There were companies like IBM there.
Yeah, the head of consulting for IBM, he presented their strategy. He's on the consulting side, and he's got, I don't know, it sounded like he has $1.6 billion of revenue. So definitely having a lot of engagements with AI, and they shared their strategy for how they're going to market with their customers and what their lessons learned are implementing AI at scale. And, IBM's been doing this for quite a while with Watson.
Right.
And they've essentially pivoted their business now where their majority of their revenue is coming from their services business. And he described, several key technologies that they're thinking about. His name was Shobit Varshney. And he basically gave us, his insights into their innovations that they're doing at IBM. And it was really quite excellent.
Excellent.
And so what about the award? I want to jump onto that.
Sure. So let's talk about what the startup challenge was. ISG invited several businesses like ours where the entrepreneurs kind of behind these solutions got to get up in front of the audience. And there's 100 plus enterprise customers there, Accenture and others. And they got 6 minutes, or we got 6 minutes to pitch our products and our company And the audience, along with the ISG leaders, their judges, had a chance to vote on which technology they were most likely to implement within their own organization. And Iridius won, which is a testament to the hard work that you two and the rest of the team have been doing, and over the last 9-10 months. And it's super exciting to see how customers reacted to what we're building. And they clearly saw that, implementing safe, responsible AI in their organizations and being able to do it fast with confidence is clearly something they're super interested in.
And you talked to, as Philip, and you talked a little moment ago, you talked to a lot of different customers while you were there. Oh, fantastic. There we go. The award. So what about the challenges that customers were facing? What were you hearing from the conversations you were having and from the presentations at the event?
Yeah, the interesting thing I heard was, I'd say if I look at the patterns, one, human in the loop is clearly a thing. And customers really want to have the control and still have the chance to control that environment, and they're very concerned about it. Clearly, that's one of the things that I think they liked about the way we've designed our product, is that there are steps all the way through where humans are in the loop, and that came true. The second one, and I already mentioned it, was they're struggling to get these solutions in production, and the success rate is low, where a lot of the customers are, they're spending money. Okay. So their AI is probably the number one funded thing in a lot of these companies. And when I say thing, it's focus area of technology. Yet their returns are very, very small. And it's mostly because of the pattern we've seen historically, is that customers are wanting to do this, but they aren't willing to take the risk to go all the way into production. That was one pattern. The second is that I had side conversations with at least 10 different customers where they're looking for a company that can come and help them, not just build or implement platform technology, but go all the way up the stack to solve their business problems. And they essentially said that they lack kind of the core foundational skills that they're going to need to really do AI at scale right now. I'd say those are the couple key takeaways that I have.
Want to double click into the risks. What kind of, did they highlight any of the risks that they're experiencing, why they haven't pushed into deployment?
It's interesting that you asked that, because I think that the trepidation is coming from their security world, right? CISOs, and they're not sure that the amount of testing that's been done, like pen testing and making sure that the security factor has been included in the design. They don't have the confidence, Philip, and they're not willing to, bet the business.
And that's a very valid concern. I mean, this is something that, well, as you know, we've been thinking of since day one of Iridius and various pivots that we've had. Having security built right into the product, whether it's encryption. We don't just do encryption at rest or in motion, but we also do encryption, in compute. So we're really maximizing privacy and obfuscation. But more importantly, I think the features that we're thinking about in terms of driving this to give the CISOs and security people. We just ran into it with a customer yesterday, right? As you know, the customer called me, in a mild panic because of the blockers that their CISO put up to this project. And so this is a very real issue, Mike. Are you seeing that? No, because you've had multiple conversations this week. Is that a common pattern you're seeing?
It is, and it's interesting because when I look at, the CISO's role is critical, and they are safeguarding the company. right? That's their mission in life. And I think the message I heard is they want to find a way to say yes, right? And there's an appetite to really want to implement this technology, AI in particular. And I think it's the companies that make it part of their standard platform from the beginning, from the ground up. You have to be secure in everything that you do in the product before you're going to make it into the enterprise at scale. That's something we, of course, have known, right? But boy, oh boy, everybody's talking about it right now.
Yeah, you really have to lean into this, and I know that we are as a company. But when we had Ty Lambo on the podcast just a couple of weeks ago, Ty was the first CISO for the city of Atlanta, was CISO for the Federal Reserve. I mean, his perspective was exactly the same. It's a need to be able to get your arms around this, and right now, because it's moving at such an exponential pace, it's extremely difficult to understand as a CISO how to get your arms around it and how to de-risk it. And that's the big thing here. And I think, that's why it's incumbent on Iridius, as we are to be a security forward company, just as we are an AI forward company, and to find a way to be able to ensure that security is baked in. I think that the organizations that are bringing products to market where security is an afterthought, or where things are really challenging, and a lot of those are hitting the enterprise right now. And as they hit the enterprise, then that's causing CISOs to be pretty scared. As Philip said earlier, there was some of these haven't been pen tested. They also haven't been AI red teaming. Lots of security things. They're using data without homomorphic encryption and things like that. So all of this sort of stuff is unfortunately causing CISOs to be reticent, and that's not surprising given the situation right now.
Absolutely. And I'd take it one step further and say that when you think about what's happening with agents in particular, that's where there's a sense of, I would call it, lack of control. And the fear is all these agents are working together and nobody has any transparency into what's really happening. And they don't see the mechanism to control the agent in terms of what it can do, what access it has, and what it can't do, right? Which it just makes me realize that it reinforces how critical getting the entitlements right for those agents really is.
Yeah, going to the entitlement side, this is really important. This is this gets into the behaviors and the psychology aspects and the change management. All of those are key components of getting adopted, because when I think about this, Mike, and this,
Yeah,
the core of everything we do is about building trust.
totally. And what's interesting is that if you do the one wrong thing, you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
That is the interesting thing about what earning trust is all about. And let me give you an example of your point around culture and behavior of agents. And this is public knowledge now. Moderna was there presenting. Moderna just reorganized IT under HR, and the audience, I mean, people were shocked, thinking, what's the logic there? Well, the logic for Moderna, and they've been in AI, I think, Alistair, as you know, they've been going hard at AI across the company with success, is that they realize that with agents of the future are workers. How agents behave matters. And we have been investigating and are implementing agentic controls through behavior and culture. And the interesting thing about that is that we can program agents to lean in on the corporate culture you're trying to transform the company towards. And that actual conversation came up. And it was surprising to me that not a lot of people talked about that at this stage, but Moderna obviously had been thinking about it.
I mean, you wouldn't expect to onboard a new employee to Moderna in the same way that you would to IBM, or the same way that you would to GM. They're fundamentally different companies. Okay. And so, they have different company cultures. They have different ways of talking to each other, different tools that they chat with. Okay. And so being able to understand what that company culture is and allow humans to work within it means that there's an onboarding process in order for that to occur. It's the same for AI. As you create these agents, they need to onboard into the company culture in order to understand how to interact appropriately. And I think you're absolutely spot on. These sorts of things are crucial going forward.
They really are. And I think it's interesting within our own company, as you two know, culture matters, right? We all spent a lot of time obsessing about our leadership principles and getting them right. And imagine a world that you're implementing where a lot of your workers don't even know what your leadership principles are. They don't they don't understand the behavior, and some people don't think they need to, about what you're trying to do as an organization. And how, in the model I see going forward, is you're going to have employees interacting with agents. And if they're not having some alignment around your values, then that could be challenging.
Absolutely. And I mean, as you onboard more and more virtual employees, and I don't mean virtual in terms of, we're all remote right now as we're talking to each other. I mean, as in digital, these employees, okay, and these virtual agents that are acting end up being like, Commander Data on the bridge of the Enterprise in Star Trek or similar. These are people fulfilling a role with goals, okay, and then interacting with humans, and they have to be onboarded and they have to be treated in that way. And so in some ways, it really isn't surprising that IT and HR are so closely linked.
It's not. It's just, it's fascinating, because if you were to ask me in my career, did I ever think that org structure would work? I would have said no. But in the world that we're venturing into, I think it does.
So you were also, we talked quite a bit about ISG. You were also in Kirkland on Thursday. So tell us a little bit about what that event was about and what was going on there, and what you were doing there.
Yeah, interestingly, I got home late Wednesday night, and the gentleman, Dean Jones from Sotheby's, who is really the spearheading this forum, I said, Dean, what texted him? I said, what do I really need to be there at 7 a.m.? And he said, yes, we got to have you there at 7. So I went there after, flying, what was it, 2,487 miles from Boston, and then woke up and went straight to Kirkland. And that event was really a forward-looking event around how is AI going to impact the Northwest, and from a number of dimensions. And when we talk about the Northwest, we're talking real estate, we were talking job growth, we were talking growth of some of the bigger businesses here in the area, which in the Puget Sound, we've got AWS, Microsoft headquarters. There's a big contingent of tech companies in AI right here in our backyard. And so the purpose of the meeting was to inform, I think there was probably about 400 people there, inform the community on, and a lot of community leaders in business were there. And they looked at it from a multiple vantage points, like what is happening at the macroeconomic level around the US's business climate in the US and rest of the world, and kind of the changes that are being implemented, and then what the impact is on investment. And they looked at other things around the challenges of living in the Pacific Northwest with a lot of the tech companies here, is that housing has become very unaffordable. I think the average age of someone buying a house now is up into their mid-30s, which, as both of you know from being in the Northwest a long time, that's a big change. Not to mention, when they look at really what's the pipeline look like for new housing, there's not enough land. So it's continuing to push everything out farther and farther. And then they looked at the impact of tariffs on what it's going to do to home construction, and how, that's going to add 10+% just in tariff conversations So all those materials to build your homes have gone up in price already as well. What I was asked to do was spend some time with a couple other entrepreneurs that are in the AI space in the Northwest around what's going to be happening with jobs. What do we see with the recent layoffs with Microsoft, and how's the AI really going to change the landscape? And there's really two sides of that coin. The first side is if you listen to a lot of the leaders in the tech industry of where their companies are going and what they have concerns about. Anthropic's CEO just last week came out and said up to 50% of the entry-level white-collar jobs are going to disappear in the next 5 years because of AI. That's a huge number. You're talking about 30 million jobs. And that's just in our country. When you think about it at a global level, it could easily be 10 times that. And then the question is, well, what is the net effect and impact of losing those jobs, not just at a regional level, but from a country level? And it is the country and I would call it positioned to absorb those type of roles in different areas of the economy. When I went through MIT's business strategy for AI class, one of the professors said, well, we've seen this before, right? At the turn of the century, 1900s, there were 42% of the US was agriculturally focused. Now it's only 1.8%. And what I didn't think of then, that I do think of now is, okay, but that took a century, right? We're talking a couple of years. And that is insane. That is something I don't think we've settled with and understanding how AI is really going to have that profound impact. Now, that being said, in the Northwest, there is the other side of the coin that I mentioned earlier, which is I expect over time there will be more job growth in the area of AI as Microsoft and Google and AWS are cranking up those AI teams. And I believe that the Pacific Northwest will be kind of one of the meccas in the world for AI.
Absolutely. Mike, I really appreciate your time today and talking with us. So we like to round off, and we're going to round off with you asking, like we do all of our other guests, what do you like to do for fun?
I like to meet with the investors. That's my new thing. It's very fun to be rejected. I especially love the rejection. But yeah, what do I love to do for fun? I love to play golf. I love to snow ski. I love to walk my dogs at Marymore Park, I should say have them walk me. But yeah, those are the things, Phil.
And you love to cook too.
I'm not a very good cook, but I like to cook.
That's awesome. And then just also for the audience, how did you get to where you are in your career today?
I'll just real quick. My dad was a plastic surgeon. And when I was 19, I thought, yeah, I think I might want to be a doctor. And he took me to sit down with his best buddy, Dr. Stuntz, who's no longer with us. He was the chief neurosurgeon at Children's Hospital. My dad was the chief plastic surgeon. And they said, why the heck do you want to be a doctor? And I told them, here's what I was thinking. And they said, okay, you've been in school a couple years. What do you love? Is there some class that you've taken that you just love? And I took a programming class for the math credits. And I just said, I've loved writing code. They said, do that. Computers, that's going to be a big thing. That was back in 1983. So they were right. And I think the advice I give anybody, which I just gave yesterday at that event in Kirkland, a gal said to me, I've got 2 9-year-olds. Should they learn AI? And I said, well, with guardrails, yes. And she said, well, do you think they should not do certain careers? I said, look, my advice is what my dad gave me, which was, son, follow what you're passionate about. You'll love what you do. It won't feel like work and you'll have fun. And so that's the best career advice I could give, Phil.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah,
Mike
thanks,
Kropp,
Mike.
CEO of Iridius. Thank you so much for your time today. That's a wrap on this week's episode of the Agentic Insider. Thank you for listening. For show notes and more, please visit agenticinsider.show. To learn more about Iridius, visit iridius.ai. We'll see you next time.